My name is Alexander Emmett Maurice Johnson. And I grew up at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, 3826 Wheeler Street, where the Reverend Dr. William Alexander Lawson was my pastor. I have absolutely no recollection of the first time I met Pastor Lawson. However, I recall the date fondly. The date was February 22nd, 1988. We were at St. Joseph's Hospital. It was the day of my twin sister's birth. For those of you who may not know, my twin sister's name is Agnes. She's named after my mother's mother, Agnes Diggs Gentry. Because my parents desired for their children to have matching initials, my father asked Pastor Lawson, given that we had no one in my lineage with an A name, if he knew of a good name that started with an A. Pastor Lawson, in his preeminent modesty, immediately suggested Alexander. And the rest is history. I fondly recall that it was when I was writing my college essays, I remembered Pastor Lawson sharing a sermon one Sunday. It was in my youth that I started listening to what he was saying. And I don't know how he got on the subject, but he suggested that we as Wheeler Avenue or the Black Church should not only send our children to historically black colleges and universities, we should also send some of our children to predominantly white institutions. I guess so that we can like infiltrate them maybe, I don't know. But I took it to be my mission. And I took his words that day as my goal, my aim. And I did. I graduated from a couple of PWIs. I tried Howard and it just didn't work. But I in that essay remarked upon how it was always my desire and my goal to make my family proud, to make God proud, and to not disappoint my church family, and to not tarnish the name Alexander. Now, it isn't lost on me. Some of you started doing math when I told you that I was born in 1988. Yeah, I'm the youngest person on the program to speak, by far. And I consider it a real honor. So thank you to the Lawson ladies. Thank you, Pastor Cosby. But Pastor Lawson wrote my name down. I saw it on the piece of paper. We sat there. He wanted me on program, so I guess I didn't mess up the name too much, to his knowledge. I've known that I was on program longer than any of the other program guests, save Bishop Dixon and Dr. Cosby, because I was at the house. We went over the list, and yet this has been the most difficult writing assignment for me. Honestly, I haven't felt. We're family, right? I was in my therapy session today, and I was telling my therapist, like, I haven't felt sad. I really haven't felt sad. I haven't cried. Because Pastor Lawson lived 95 remarkable years. 95, just, she asked me to tell me about him. I said, he was almost like Jesus Jr. Like, Like, he was so sagely, and Pastor Kirby John calls him the Pope. I called him the Pope's Pope. I mean, he was so sagely, but so kind and compassionate, and so caring and loving and witty. His humor, many of you may not have had the benefit of experiences his humor, but we met on that level. I mean, it was just, there was so much to the man. Obviously, his activism and his service to community and mankind cannot be understated. But I think if we are to best honor his legacy, it is his love for the other that we must remember. We've heard from members of the Jewish faith today. Tomorrow we will hear from Catholic cardinal, and we'll hear from Muslim, what is he? He's a Muslim. Minister Robert Muhammad, Dr. Muhammad. But it is because Pastor Lawson's love for the other transcended boundaries. And we too must do that. I have been benefited by proximity. I keep remembering the scripture, Psalm 16:6. The lines of my life, the boundary lines of my life have fallen to me in pleasant places. I figured I would start crying today. The boundary lines of my life have fallen to me in pleasant places. We're reminded of Dr. Harry Wright. He says, it's not that I did anything to deserve it. I didn't orchestrate any of it. They just fall into me in pleasant places. I just happened to be born at Wheeler Avenue. Just happened to be named after the pastor. I just happened to be called into ministry. And I just happened to be close to Olu Chapman, the red man. He called him a red man. Olu Chapman was my youth minister before Jock Dinkins was my youth minister. It shows you how old he is. And when it came time to form this perfunctory search committee for the next pastor of Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church, Olu Chapman relinquished his position on the search committee to Alexander Johnson. He said, if this is going to be the intergenerational church, or the church that is so loving and so uplifting of our youth, then we need a youth on the search committee. And so for those of you who do not know, I, along with Deaconess Cashaw, are solely responsible for Pastor Cosby being pastor. We twisted arms, we stayed late at night, we ensured, Tophus Anderson and likewise, we got him around on board after all, and it was the most pointless process I've ever been a part of. Now, strict instructions have been given to not make this service, to not say too much about Pastor Cosby in this service. He rightly wants this service to be about honoring this giant of a man who is the Reverend William Alexander Lawson. But you know a tree by the fruit it bears. And it is incumbent upon me to mention the reality that the proximity that I have been blessed to experience, proximity that has placed me in rooms I had no business being in, on boards I have no knowledge about. I mean, that's the same proximity that Pastor Lawson afforded Pastor Cosby. And it prepared him for today. It prepared him for the last 20 years. I have had the privilege of a boundary line in my life falling, such that I could watch these men honor one another in such playful and powerful ways. The love they shared is unmatched. The way that they honor one another. I've watched them write such magnificent prose in emails, flattering the other. And they meant it. They meant it. There are pastors from around the world who are gathering with us today. I'm looking at some great pastors. We know, all of us, the pastors, that the model for transition is one that has been remarkably established here at Wheeler Avenue Baptist Church. Remarkably, it is to be modeled after for successful pastoral transition and succession. And it is because these two men are both humble enough to not be threatened by the other and to uplift the other every time they had opportunity. Pastor Cosby has done remarkably well to take care of Pastor Lawson and the Lawson family. And I honor you for the way that you have honored him. To God be the glory. The lines of my life have fallen to me in pleasant places.